Hello and welcome to the Back Nine Report, where every week Fred Altvater and I check in on the world of golf to bring you the latest news, insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, previews. Hey, we cover anything and everything golf. In other words, if it happened in golf, we have it for you. And today we have a big one. At least some people would say some sort of a big tournament is the PGA Championship. So, as you all know, when we have those big tournaments, we have to bring in the reinforcements. With us today, I'm going to bring him first, is the European golf guru, Kieran Clarke. How are you today?
Well, I'm feeling wonderful and energized, Carlos, because we're actually now here on May 17, or actually May 18 now, technically here, but we're now actually moving out of finally, the coronavirus lockdown here in the UK, and you can do things like indoor hospitality. The cinemas have reopened. All this, there's fans back in sports stadiums. Oh my goodness, it's all incredible. Normality, or something like normality, has come back. And even in the real absurdity of it all, the official guidance now says that you can actually hug people, and you can have, which is overwhelming. You can hug your loved ones. Isn't that wonderful? It's only taken us 14 months to get to this stage.
I've been breaking the law for a year and a half.
Oh dear. Well, so you can hug your loved ones and you can have close physical contact, which is a relief to us all. So, happy days.
That law about having physical contact, a lot of marriages, I think, have broken that law. So
I don't know. Actually, for a lot of them, it might have been the best thing that's ever happened for them. So you never know. So.
I know there's some that really say like, yeah. I mean, that was
well, that's a different show, though. This is the PGA Championship.
Let's stick to golf. So, hey, Fred. Hi. How are you today?
Hey, talking about COVID. Here in Michigan, even they eased the mask laws. So I feel like a real rebel now. I walk in without a mask on. I'm just wait for somebody to come up and arrest me or something, or throw me in jail or whatever. It's a very freeing atmosphere. I love it. I just feel like a rebel. It's great. Hey, excited to talk about the PGA. It's our second major of the year. So we've had the Players, we've had the Masters, now we got the PGA. This is good stuff. And you know what? This kicks off the rest of the summer. From now through August, there's a tremendous amount of golf to be played, guys.
There is. And let's start talking about what we are here for, which is the PGA Championship. Is this week. It's the second major of the year. And we can't wait for it. We have to start talking about it. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, a lot of things are riding at stake here. Pretty soon we'll have the US Open. We'll have the Open. We still have the Fedex Cup running. There's going to be the Olympics a little farther down the line. A lot of things are coming here into play. So, Fred, what do you think about the rankings? I mean, why do we care about talking about the PGA Championship this week?
Well, first of all, it's a major, like we mentioned, so that gives it extra credibility, and we've got to give it some more airtime for sure. Do you realize that 33 events have been played out of the 46? We've only got 13 events left in this season. It's almost 70% over. So it just kind of slips by. It's kind of amazing. And like I alluded to just a little bit ago, excuse me, like I alluded to just a minute ago, from now through August, we've got these two majors. We've got the FedEx Cup. Then after that, we got the Olympics coming up. I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on over the next 3 or 4 months. So, we've seen a little bit, in the Players who's on top of their game. The Masters was good. Hideki, of course, walked away with that in April. We've got 156 players in the field this week, 99 of the top 100 in the world. Plus, we've got those 20 PGA pros that earned their spot in the field as well. $15 million purse, $2.7 million to the winner. That's a nice little payday. Why do we care? Well, like I said, the stuff coming up. A big thing on the radar is the Ryder Cup. The points in this thing count a little bit heavier in the Ryder Cup mix. And so Captain Steve Stricker is looking forward to who he wants on that team. Same way with Patty Harrington for the European team. We've got the FedEx Cup. These guys are all trying to get FedEx Cup points to get in top 30. You win a major, you immediately jump to the head of the line. It's a big deal. So you can go deeper in the playoffs, make more money in your pocket. The history, tremendous history for the PGA. We kind of know what that is. Began back in 1916, was a match play event clear up until 1957. Walter Hagen made a career out of winning the PGA. I think he won it like 5 times or something. Has been played primarily in the eastern portion of the United States, only played in the West Coast 11 times. But that doesn't matter. It's still a great event with a great field, and it's one of the majors. So, guys, we got to be up for it. We got to be excited about watching it this week, right?
Oh, we do, and definitely, like you mentioned, it's one of the majors. And Kieran, I always wonder, like Fred is saying, there's a lot of. I can't believe really that there's only 13 tournaments left. I mean, we're in May, for God's sake. We have to have some more tournaments. This cannot be that way. But anyway, that's what's coming. I always wonder, and what you think. I mean, besides why do we have to care about the PGA Championship? Is like, do players really think about those things? Hey, the Ryder Cup is, I have to do well in this one because the points are bigger. About my ranking. How's that thinking on the players' minds?
Well, I think it depends on the player. I mean, for the big time players, winning is everything, and winning takes care of all of those other things. You win major championships, the Ryder Cup, the Fedex Cup, all that stuff is guaranteed in the bank anyway. So that's how they approach it. If you're a lower ranked player, and as Fred touched on, you have essentially the entirety of the world's top 100 players here, who, guys from all over the world who are playing for different reasons. And this, a strong week here, can be career, if not changing, certainly career enhancing. And that's what these big championships with the huge prize money and the huge ranking points pertain to. If you're one of the European golfers, for example, or even one of the outside American golfers, in terms of the Ryder Cup race, as Fred touched on for the US team, it's double points for the winner and 1.5 times points for those players who make the cut this week in terms of Ryder Cup qualification. So that's a big opportunity there for one of those guys who aren't in that top 8 players right now to break into that fold, get into contention, to potentially be part of the team at Whistling Straits later in the year. And it's interesting with Whistling Straits as well being the venue for the Ryder Cup. And there are distinct similarities between Whistling Straits and Kiawah Island. So perhaps form here, that could play a part as well when it comes to captain's picks and so on with both captains later in the season. So it's an interesting event for a lot of reasons. But obviously the main thing is it's a major championship, the Wanamaker Trophy, which is of course the biggest physically trophy that we have in golf. And there's some obviously incredible names on that, and to be part of that history is obviously incredible. And the PGA Championship's an interesting event where it's, if you could choose to win a major, this probably wouldn't be the one. But then who has the right to choose? They're all fantastic events, and you would take it, of course. It doesn't have the iconic majesty of the Masters or the unique history of the Open Championship, or indeed the national identity of the US Open. But it's still one heck of a golf tournament. And this is one very striking venue. It's one fantastic field. And it's a very, very difficult championship to call this week. And it makes for, I think, a really, really intriguing week.
It definitely does. And you mentioned about the Kiawah Island, the ocean course. I mean, this is one of Pete Dye's most famous designs. Stretches out over 7,800 yards. Combine that with the prevailing crosswinds from the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, the word diabolical comes to mind. Fred, how about the course? I mean, does it length favors the players here? How about the Bryson show? Is he going to have an extreme advantage here? How's the weather? What do you think about Kiawah Island's ocean course?
Yeah, as we look ahead to this PGA Championship, my feeling all along has been that the golf course is definitely, if not the major storyline, right up to the top of the list, because this is a heck of a golf course, guys. You mentioned it's right on the coast. There's a bunch of holes that play right along the beach. It's really a beautiful, beautiful setting. There's not hardly a tree to be seen. So the weather is supposed to be perfect all 4 days, 80 degrees and sunny. I didn't see if there was going to be a lot of wind, but it didn't look like it. I think it might be rather benign. So that could be very good for the players. And, you asked the question, is length an advantage on this golf course? I'm not so sure length is a big advantage here, the advantage here is if you are a good chipper and putter of the golf ball. There's enough room to hit it from tee to green. It's when you get up around those greens, what you're going to do that's really going to make the difference. They're going to have some galleries there. They're going to allow about 10,000 spectators a day in there. So that'll be good. There'll be some crowds to do some hooping and hollering. So let me talk just a minute more about the course. I'll turn it back over to Kieran here. But this is one of the most difficult golf courses in the world. As I mentioned, short game is going to be very important. Is this a links golf course? It's as much of a links golf course as you're going to find in the United States. I don't know if I could ever agree that anything outside of Scotland or Ireland is really a links golf course. But in the United States, they talk about Pebble being a links golf course. It is on the ocean, and that's great. But the ocean course here at Kiawah is pretty much a links course, except it's even more so. It's rough. It's got a rough look. There's a lot of nature and natural areas, native areas, but Pete has built up mounds and he's built up some different hazards and some different things. So it's kind of like a links course on steroids. And Kieran, who gets to play the Great Links courses every day, can address that when he's talking. But for here in the United States, is about as much a links course as you're ever going to find. As you mentioned, it's really long. It has a slope of 155. That's probably about 30 points higher than any of the local track that you're going to play. The course rating is 79.1. That's a full 7 strokes over a normal par of 72. Anything under a 90 for an average golfer here is very good. If you could take probably a 4 or 5 handicap, and if they can keep it in the 80s, they're having a heck of a day. From the highest point on the golf course, which is standing on the 14th tee, you get a great look back to the clubhouse, all along the beach. You're at the southernmost point of the course, and it's really a beautiful sight. It's one of the best courses in the world, to be sure. And other than the winner will be the biggest storyline this week. They'll be talking all about the golf course. You won't want to miss that.
Most definitely. And Kieran, I'm not going to say that it's a monster, but it should be. I mean, even though it's going to be big, if we remember when Rory McIlroy won in 2012, I mean, he went to 13 under, but nobody was better than 5 under at that time. Mm-hmm. And they were playing at par 72. If you make it a par 71, oh my goodness, the scores would have been horrible. And we don't know if the wind is going to howl like it did that time, but definitely it could become a factor coming in. What you think about Kiawah, and also, I know the galleries are not going to be back to what they should be, but I'm sure that Rory is like, oh, I love it, because one thing is that he didn't do anything when there were no fans, but now when there were some fans in the Wells Fargo, he roared. Yep. So how about this?
Oh yeah, I think having the fans there unquestionably adds a certain gravitas to the event, it makes it feel like a big time tournament, championship, which is what it is. I mean, all the majors that we had last year, it was great. We had them. We had great winners. But Harding Park, obviously last August for the PGA Championship, it was dead. It was so quiet. It was a great event, great finish, great winner, but it just didn't have that atmosphere. Likewise with the Masters and the US Open at Winged Foot, they just didn't have that same big time feel, and this will have more of that. Of course, the last time the PGA was here, they had some issues with some of the transportation to the golf course and the traffic and some of the crowd control. Obviously, having fewer people there, but much more manageable, and actually, I think a very pleasant experience for those who are actually lucky enough to attend the championship this week, especially as Fred touched on. The weather forecast is to be beautiful, glorious sunshine all 4 days, and the wind itself, it looks to be around about 10 to 15 miles an hour at most each day, which might not seem absolutely damaging, and it certainly isn't by Kiawah standards, but it's enough for the players to be conscious of with club selection, and certainly with shot shape and so on, and particularly on some of these greens, where what makes this course quite interesting is that while it is obviously right on the coast, a lot of it is very much exposed as well, and that was an addition that I believe Alistair insisted on. Let's have some of the greens, some of the places, some of the holes a little bit more exposed to the coast, to the Atlantic, and just bring in that natural condition. And that's why a lot of the local people here, people who go to Kiawah regularly, often comment on, it always seems to be windy here because it is so exposed. So while 10 to 15 miles an hour wind isn't that high, certainly by standards that I would be used to here on the east coast of Scotland, it's certainly enough when a golf course like this is as exposed as it is in many parts. So it will be a factor, not a massively damaging one, I don't think, but it'll be enough for the players to be thinking about. And with regards to the golf course itself, I mean, you touched on it there, Carlos, about the winning score last time, 9 years ago. You're 13 under par. People assume golf courses, if they're going to be, if they're hard, if they're difficult, then the scores have to be really high. But I firmly believe that any golf course that's of any decent standard should be able to yield a low score to great golf. And 9 years ago, Rory McIlroy played great golf. And to me, that's a sign of a good golf course where, yes, it was difficult and scoring was tough, but it still gave the chance for one player who was so good to go out and make a great score. And that, to me, is an indication of a golf course that's set up really well and is fair. And with regards to the PGA Championship, one thing that does stand out about it is a setup of the golf courses. Kerry Haig of PGA of America, it does a very much an acclaimed job with the setup of the golf courses. The players, generally speaking, enjoy these setups, certainly in contrast to a US Open. And dare I say, even some of the Masters can occasionally be a little bit cartoonish with the green speeds and so on. But this one here, they typically don't worry about the score. They set up a golf course that's challenging, but it's fair. The players really enjoy that. It's more what they're used to week in, week out on the PGA Tour, maybe with a slightly elevated difficulty level. So I think that makes for a really interesting event. But the golf course itself, it is big, it's bold, it's beautiful. You mentioned length. Is that a factor? I think length always helps. But when you look back at the previous PGA Championship here, I mean, you can point to, yes, Rory was there. That means length, means everything. Well, yeah, but who else is in? Look at that top 10. We had David Lynn. We had Ian Poulter. We had Jamie Donaldson. We had Graham McDowell finished just outside the top 10. We had Steve Stricker in that top 10. All that point, and it was a big golf course 9 years ago as well, 765 back then. So it does indicate that, yes, length's good, length's important, but this is a golf course that rewards a different kind of, all kinds of players and different kinds of skill sets. And that, I think, is, again, another positive sign for Kiawah Island as a golf course and the design that Pete and Alice Dye put in there. And it suggests that we could have a really varied leaderboard this week. And again, it makes it a really difficult championship to call when you consider that a lot of the guys in that top 5 in the world rankings maybe aren't quite at peak form right now. I think it opens the door for a lot of players to be in contention this week. And I think that is a great indication for the golf course, but also for the championship as well. And I think I agree with Fred. I think the golf course will be a star this week. And I think it's a great setting for a major. Remember the Ryder Cup here 30 years ago now, in 91, just after the golf course opened. And it's now matured into a really, really standout venue on the East Coast in America.
Most definitely. And go ahead, Fred. Go ahead.
Yeah, one more before we leave the course. I got one more thing for you. I got a tip. Okay, so I have had the opportunity to play the Ocean Course on one occasion, and it was a fun experience. I enjoyed it a lot. It was fantastic. I played forward tees, so it was a lot of fun. But I do have a tip, okay? So hole number 17, it's an absolute beast of a par 3, right? So I've got a tip for you, how I recommend you play it. So the best way to play number 17 is just go ahead and hit your tee shot in the water. Don't worry about it, okay? Just go ahead and hit your tee shot in the water. Go to the drop area. Get the next ball on the green. Try to make your putt for bogey. Maybe just try to keep from double bogeying, okay? That's the best thing I can, because if you stand on the tee and try to hit another ball, and you're just going to hit it in the water anyhow, you're just going to make yourself more frustrated. So just hit one in the water, go to the drop area, hit it on the green, try to make a bogey and get out of town. You will see a lot of the pros actually choosing a line clear to the left side of that green where there's actually some grass over there to hit to. I have no clue other than that for the average golfer how to play it. It's a long carry across water. If you try to go to the right at all, it will hit the water. I'm guaranteeing it. It's just, there's just no way. And if you don't believe it, ask Mark Calcavecchia. He can tell you all about it. So he lost several balls in there. Yeah. But it's really a tough hole. And I'm advising anybody that wants to win this thing, they better come to the 17th with a 2 or 3 shot lead because they can easily make double or triple on that baby and go to the 18th tied or behind. So
the question is where the first question I had, you already answered because you said it was fun. I was going to say, what tees were you going to play? Were you playing for?
You know what? As we were walking out with our caddies, and I was paired with 3 other people, and we're walking out there, and I'd made a thing with Pete Dye a long time ago. When I play a Pete Dye golf course, I play the most forward tees I can play. You know what? If you do that, you will enjoy playing Pete Dye golf course. If you don't, it'll be a long, frustrating day. As we're walking out, I told the other people, I don't know what tees you're going to play. I'm playing these up here. And that's fine. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you. And they said, no, we'll just all play up there. So we all played from the forward team. We had a blast.
Yeah, that 17 definitely is nasty. I mean, and it depends where the pin is placed. Because if it's forward to the left side, I mean, that couldn't be even worse because you cannot go flag hunting at all. I mean, there's no way you can play that. Now, if it's in the back, you might try to get in the green in the front, but then again, you might be tempted to go right, and that's when it's longer, that bay there. Oh, no, I don't even want to know about it. But anyway, let's talk about the players, the hottest players coming right now into the tournament. We're going to talk about 3 and maybe some more, but we're going to focus on 3 initially. And Kieran, I'm going to talk about the main storyline that among the players and maybe the hottest player, I would say since January 1st, I don't think anybody's playing better than Jordan Spieth. And if you want the stat, only 2 players right now have more than are averaging more than 2 strokes gains per round. Those are Jordan Spieth at 2.2 and Daniel Berger at 2.1. Plus, he only has 1 win to show for it, but the main storyline is this could be his career Grand Slam win. Okay, only 5 players have done it. And last time when he had a good chance to do it was when he was just fresh off his Open win in 2017. I don't think, Kieran, there's a better chance that he's had ever since.
Yeah, I think Jordan Spieth has a great chance this week. I think the Barron Nelson was a very solid performance from him, coming back obviously after a layoff following the Masters and the COVID test and all the rest of it. And of course, he does give up a bit of yardage here compared to some of the other guys. But as I said earlier, in particular with Jordan Spieth, when I mentioned that variety of skills and the iron play and the short game, and Fred touched on the putting, Jordan Spieth has so many other skills that can make up for a relative lack of distance. And I think that will take him far this week. And you mentioned obviously the Grand Slam chasing, which he is right now. And Spieth's one of these guys who, to me, there's just something kind of magical about him as a golfer. He's one of those players that has that special something where you believe stuff can happen, greatness, history, and this would be a piece of history. And I think it would be, the biggest story to come out of the championship this week if it actually happened. It'd be wonderful to see. And obviously, players have come up a little bit short with the Grand Slam. We know about Phil Mickelson and Sam Snead at the US Open. Of course, we also have Rory McIlroy at the Masters. And indeed, in the PGA Championship, Arnold Palmer and Tom Watson, both, this is the one they couldn't get their hands on. They are not on the Wanamaker Trophy, but Jordan Spieth might very well be on the Wanamaker Trophy. So I think he has a great chance. And also looking at him, more generally, Carlos, in terms of previous form, obviously I mentioned Whistling Straits earlier. Obviously being something like this, not quite the same, but it's close enough as you'll get at this level of the game. And Jordan Spieth in previous years has played very well on these kind of, Fred called it a links course on steroids, these kind of links style golf courses like Whistling Straits and Chambers Bay. And Jordan Spieth has played very well on those courses in the past, obviously winning the US Open at Chambers Bay. He finished second in the PGA to Jason Day back in 2015 at Whistling Straits. So he plays well on these kind of big, bold designs because I think his iron play, his intelligence, his perseverance as well, I think is really important on these golf courses. And obviously his magical touch on the greens he enjoys, the style of putting surface. And I think it will take him very far this week. I always root for the story in golf, particularly when it comes to the majors. And I can't think of a better one than Jordan Spieth, considering where he was, just 6 months ago, even less than that. I mean, go back to when the PGA was played back in August. I mean, Jordan Spieth of then to now, it's unrecognisable. He has just this swagger back, this confidence back, and things are happening again. And something very special, I think, could happen at Kiawah this week for Jordan Spieth.
Most definitely. And what you think, Fred? I mean, Jordan's been playing well. He didn't putt well at the Byron Nelson, and maybe that cost him this past weekend. But we definitely have seen his resurgence. He's finally healthy. Could this be the time for him? I mean, he's one of the hottest players coming in.
Well, it seems like we see Jordan near the top of the leaderboard almost every week now over the last 6 months. Yeah, he's just coming off COVID. It looked like he maybe ran out of gas a little bit on Sunday there. He maybe was a little tired, maybe a little weak yet, not clear back up to strength. But he still managed the top 10. He's number 8 in the FedEx Cup now. He does need the PGA to complete his career Grand Slam. But I'll tell you guys, I really think his driving is still a little bit suspect, although his tremendous short game has served him well. So there aren't trees and stuff to hit it under, but there is waste areas and different places to play from. There's some big bushes and stuff that can get in your road. So, if he can keep the driving under control and keep it in the ballpark, he could stand a good chance. But a couple other guys that I like that are really hot right now, and you're going to talk about those, so I'm going to shut up.
So let's talk about a second guy and I'm talking about the defending champion in Kiawah Island. That's Rory McIlroy, right? Because 9 years ago, Fred, he won here. So he's the defending Kiawah Island PGA Championship winner. And just 2 weeks removed from his win, that winless drought was gone finally. He's with Pete Cowan. How about Rory? I mean, his history here, we know all about it. He has the perfect game to win here. How about Rory McIlroy?
He's coming in off some confidence winning the Wells Fargo for sure. He did not drive the ball all that well at the Wells Fargo, but his from the fairway to the green was, just spot on. And around the greens, he was putting well, chipping well, made some great up and downs at that event. So that will serve him well here. And I'm going to tell you, I really, Rory this week for me is almost, you can pretty much mirror the comments from Jordan Spieth. It's a ball about his driving. If he can keep his driver in play, the rest of the game is solid. And with Jordan and with Rory, if they can play that driver, and they could be both of them right there in the final group on Sunday. I firmly believe that.
And Kieran, he's going, if he wins this one, he would just become the 13th player with 20 PGA Tour victories, including 5 major championships. I know you've heard about the other 12 that he has won, but that's another storyline going on with Rory. What do you think about his chances?
Well, I have to agree with Fred's analysis on Rory. I mean, I think the win at Quail Hollow was a huge boost, and it was a validation of the work he's been doing since Augusta with Pete Cowan and Bob Rotella with the mental side as well. And of course, Michael Bannon, his longtime coach, still involved there too. I think it's a validation of that. And it's interesting where, Rory, he won at Quail Hollow, and it's a, fantastic win on a, major championship standard golf course, a PGA standard golf course, of course, in previous years. And he wasn't quite at his best. And that's a great sign. When you're winning big tournaments against strong fields on a tough golf course, when you're not on your game or 100% on your game, then you're one of the best players in the world, and Rory McIlroy absolutely certainly is. So his game, Fred touched on the driving there. In that final round at Quail Hollow, he hit just 4 fairways, but the big thing was that putting. And all week, I think he was basically 100% for putts inside 6 feet. So that holing out, that getting up and down, he wasn't giving away shots needlessly like he often does, and that's a really, really, really great thing to have in a major championship. When those par saves are needed, when making birdie on par 5s, that kind of thing. And that's the foundation of his game. And if he does that this week, then he's absolutely going to be in contention, because he's just too good not to be. Now, the thing is about him, while his game wasn't maybe at its absolute peak at Quail Hollow, it was still very good. And the hope for him would be that with 2 weeks down the line, continuing that work, building on what he was doing, and of course, with that added confidence and that validation from the win that he had a fortnight ago, with that all coming together, you would hope by this stage he'll have progressed even further in this development in his game. And he'll be in an even stronger position this week than what he was 2 weeks ago. So I think that all points to Rory, having a really, really strong performance. And obviously the win here is a long, long time ago, and haven't been back since, and all that stuff. So can't look too much into course form here, but it doesn't hurt having the good memories. And I think there's a lot of good vibes going around Rory right now, and it just shows how quickly things can change. I mean, you're talking about Spieth and McIlroy. I mean, we're talking about these two guys as being almost the two favourites to win, whereas just a few months ago that would have seemed laughable. Certainly with Spieth's case, but even Rory, his struggles during the pandemic era of golf with no crowds and so on were noticeable. So it just shows you great players can turn it around so quickly. And both Rory and Jordan Spieth have something very special about them. And I think if Rory does go that extra mile with his driving, gets that the accuracy and of course the length back in there as he always has, then he's a great foundation to play well. I think both players, their games are, both Spieth and McIlroy, their games are absolutely superb. Right now from inside 200 yards, if they can solve the further back bit from the tee, then I think the two of them are going to be very hard to beat this week. So I think McIlroy, I mean, we're talking about Spieth going for the Grand Slam. Rory's looking for a win, and it's almost be the first major win of this sort of second chapter in his career, where his major win was almost 7 years ago, most recent one. So it's a long, long time ago. So a win here would almost be like a reboot, a reset, where it would be, this is Rory now. He's in his 30s, off the golf course. Life's very different. He's got a different caddy than what he had when he last won a major. New coaches obviously involved. So it would be a real validation for where Rory McIlroy is as a person, as a golfer, if he was to lift a Wanamaker trophy this week. And with Spieth and McIlroy, I think in terms of stories, if you want to root for the stories, then those two there, that's your story this week. Either of those guys winning this week would be fantastic for golf and fantastic for the PGA Championship, and it would really set us up for the months ahead.
Fred, I mean, we can talk about hottest players right now, but also a question about first-time winners. I mean, there's a lot of big names: John Ram, Patrick Cantley, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau. You can add names like Daniel Berger, Abraham Ancer, Victor Hovland. I mean, the count goes on and on. But I know there's a player you want to talk about that is very hot coming in here. Who's that?
Well, we got to be talking about Sam Burns. I mean, he is riding a wave right now. He just went win runner up. He was in contention right up until Sunday. He made a good birdie on the 72nd hole to get solo runner up last week at the Byron Nelson. So he's really playing well right now with a ton of confidence. So I don't know what his history, what experience he has on the ocean course. And I'm not sure that the ocean course lends itself well for someone to come on and be playing it for the first time. I'm sure pretty much all these guys have been around a while, have played this course over the years at one time or another, and I'm sure probably Burns has been there. But it's a little different golf course than what they see week in and week out. But if he goes in with that confidence like he's been playing and the way he's been rolling the ball, and I mean, he's hitting his driver immaculately. I mean, he's hitting it long and he's hitting it in the fairways. If he gets off the fairway a little bit, it's not really bad. He still normally has a shot. So I like him a lot, guys. I don't know what you think, but if you're going to pick what do you say? He's not really a rookie, but someone who has not had a lot of success in majors, he's someone that I'm going to kind of watch this week.
He definitely is. I mean, coming off that win in the second place, I mean, he definitely has. Now, will he be able to live up to the big stage? That's the big question right now. And Kieran, how about Sam Burns or any other possible first-time winner that you're looking for, like John Ram, like I mentioned, Xander, Tommy Fleetwood, Tyrrell Hatton, Matthew Fitzpatrick, maybe from the European side. Also, Will Zalatoris, Paul Casey, Abraham Ancer, Xander. I mean, there's so many good players that have not won a major that could be coming here and become a first-time king.
Oh, very much so. It's certainly a strong possibility, I think, particularly when it comes to the European and international players, as we like to call them in the PGA Tour. I mean, if you look back at the previous PGA Championship here 9 years ago, I mean, I think 7 in the top 10 were non-American. So that does point to this golf course being a little bit different from what you normally see on the PGA Tour, and maybe rewarding a different kind of player, or embracing different kinds of golfers, and make it more open in a good way. So it does open a door for a lot of these guys to potentially contend. And on Sam Burns, I mean, it's one thing having the results that he has, obviously winning and finishing second, but it's just the way he did it. I mean, he's so impressive. I mean, you watch him play and you think, my goodness, this guy has so much game, as they would like to say. And he really does. And it's a game that mentioned earlier with regards to the Ryder Cup and so on. Sam Burns is suddenly, oh yeah, he could be in the mix for a Ryder Cup place, particularly for a strong week here. So the opportunity is there in these major championships, particularly as we see with this kind of quick run, this quick schedule now with the US Open and the Open all coming up together, running into the FedEx Cup and the WGC in Memphis as well. So all these big events are coming up in the next 2 or 3 months, and it's a big chance for a guy. If you can catch form at this time of the season, then doors will open. Sam Burns is very, very impressive. And other guys I like for kind of not so much outside players, but they're all really good, but guys maybe for the first time winning. Obviously Victor Hovland, that such an impressive player. Cory Connors seems to have a game for tough golf courses, and I'm really intrigued to see what Will Zalatoris does after his exploits down Magnolia Lane at the Masters. So he was just so fearless in how he played and really lit up the tournament there for much of it. And I'm intrigued to see whether he can back that up with another strong performance in a major championship. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's so difficult to call this event because, as I said, some of the guys, we look at Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, maybe they're not quite at their best. Justin Thomas has been very quiet since winning the Players' Championship by his standards. So maybe the top names aren't quite at their best, or even Bryson DeChambeau. So who can sneak in there and potentially surprise these guys? If not McIlroy or Spieth, then I think there's a whole host of players that have a chance to win here of different experiences. You mentioned guys like Casey and Rose, obviously on the more veteran side of the equation. And then you have players like Mark Leishman, who is a major contender, obviously had that recent success at the Zurich alongside Cameron Smith. There's Cam Smith, another guy who has a great game for majors. I think will play well on a golf course like this. So yeah, I think there's so many guys that are in contention. And one thing about the PGA Championship is, there's a great variety in terms of the winners as well. It's obviously some of the greatest names of all time have won this championship, but also we've seen some fantastic surprise winners. Look at John Daly, 30 years ago, that amazing victory he had at Crooked Stick, coming in as the alternate overnight and going on to win and just causing a sensation there. And of course, the likes of Rich Beam and Sean McKeel and Y.E. Yang, guys who you wouldn't expect to be major champions, but they have their place rightfully in history. And yeah, I think there's so many guys that can win, and I'm deeply worrying and troubled by the fact that in a few minutes' time we'll have to pick a winner, because I find it very difficult to do.
Most definitely. And let's talk about the other side of the coin, right? Because we have talked about the hottest players coming in, but we have plenty, like you mentioned, a lot of top players. Let's start with Dustin Johnson. Since January 1st, I mean, it's like he hasn't done anything. And since he hasn't made a top 10 since the Genesis Invitational. So what's happening? I know he's been injured. The COVID has hit and all that stuff, but how about Dustin Johnson? He's still number one in the world, but that is getting up for grabs pretty soon. So how about Dustin Johnson? What you think about him?
I shall jump in then and answer that question.
Yes. No, it's for you, Kieran. It's for you.
I do apologize. Yes, it's interesting with Dustin. Obviously, he's had a real tail off in his form since winning the Masters back in November. And obviously, that was a real whirlwind experience for him. It's interesting where he missed the Byron Nelson with a knee injury, is what he said. But then he was at Kiawah Island at the weekend there practicing. So I mean, I think Dustin saw the weather forecast and thought, I'm not going to the Byron Nelson this year, because that'll be just a nightmare. So I'm going to go straight to the major and just prepare for that. So I wouldn't look too much into the injury thing with Dustin. I think he's going to be fit enough to go and play here and play quite well. Again, he's one of these players who we all know how good he can be. He can turn it on at any time. And it was interesting where obviously he's now a 2-time major winner, also a 5-time runner-up in majors. And I think we almost forget about how good he is at these tough venues. I mean, he has all the tools in the world to contend on a golf course like this. We talk about distance and accuracy off the tee. Well, he's a guy that perhaps combines those two qualities better than anyone else on his day. He's formidable, and as we all know, his route to world number one and his recent major has been through his improvement with his game from inside 150 yards, his wedges and his putting. So he has all the tools to be the best player in the world, which he has been for the past year. A slight dip in form. I still think he's going to find it very soon, and it could be this week. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced about it. But that said, for a world number one player to be as somewhat under the radar as Dustin seems to be this week, he's potentially a dangerous figure where there's so much attention on Rory, who instantly became the favourite after he won at Quail Hollow. And obviously all the story with Jordan Spieth and the narrative around the Grand Slam and all this. So yeah, Dustin Johnson, for a world number one player, for a major winner only 6 months ago, he's very much under the radar, and maybe that's where he wants to be, and maybe that's where he's going to actually surprise people and potentially pick up another major here. Because Dustin, when he won the Masters, we sort of felt that the way he was playing at that time, he had a real opportunity in the following year, this season coming up, to really stamp his claim as being the best player of his era. He probably needs another 2 or 3 majors to be in that conversation above Rory, but it could start here. So who knows?
Who knows, definitely. And we're going to have to keep going, you and me, until Fred joins us again. Unfortunately,
we lost Fred. I was here.
We lost him. So that's why we're going to keep going. And hopefully I can do a good job here of filling in. But anyway, we have the European golf guru, so he can do
I'll do my best.
For all 3 of us, easily. No problems. So anyway, you mentioned, I mean, if you go for the names Cameron Tringale, Chris Kirk, Abraham Anson, and Charlie Hoffman, you know what they have in common? They have better strokes gained than Dustin Johnson this year.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Maybe what you're saying is true. Maybe he just has us where he wants it, right? He wants us to be ignoring or at least not paying attention to him. But who knows? It's been a while since we haven't seen Dustin Johnson not playing well, and Fred is back. Fred, how about Dustin Johnson? We were just wrapping up with him, talking about that he's really not showing any form since January 1st.
Yeah, he's got a little problem with the knee, a little soreness, a little problem. And he was going to play, and he dropped out of a tournament to give it some more rest. And so I don't think he's going to be very sharp. I'm not looking for much from DJ, but it is the number one player in the world, and he is pretty good, and he does have a good short game. And if he's hitting that cut, keeping it in the fairways, look out for him. But I just think he'll be a little bit rusty, guys.
He could. And if somebody's going to be rusty, is maybe the most dominant player from 2015 to 2019 in the PGA Championship. That's Brooks Koepka. He only lost to 19 players in that span, won it twice. And last year, he flirted there with the lead on Saturday before he faded to T21 when Colin Morikawa won. Fred, we saw him playing his last tournament. He barely could walk with that knee. I mean, I was in pain worse than him watching him. So how about a battered Brooks Koepka and his chances?
Yeah, just too many physical problems. This is, as we talked about, we documented, this is a big golf course. It's not a lot of it's not a lot of hills. So that's a good thing. I think it's only like 20 meters or 30 meters difference in elevation on the whole place. It's a pretty level walk. And the only time I remember walking up to a tee box really was like number 14. It's the highest point on the golf course. You go up probably about, I don't know, maybe 30 feet, maybe up to that tee box. But I just don't think Brooks has just had too many problems this year. He's going to have to maybe even take a year off. I mean, he's taken a lot of time off over the last year and a half, right? And he's still just not getting better. It's not working for him. So I don't know what he's going to have to do, but his health issues are just too much right now.
I mean, the effort, Kieran, has to be immense. I mean, I cannot even think how he could win here. That torn knee, it doesn't allow him to go down and read putts, which last time I checked, it was really important here in the majors, But like Fred mentioned, it's not going to be hilly like his last tournament. Still, it's a long course. He's going to have to walk a lot. I just don't see how he can make it. But hey, four wins in 13 his last 13 tries in majors. He has the pedigree. If somebody can do it mentally, is Brooks Koepka.
Well, I think that mental strength is a really important thing, and I think Brooks does enjoy the aspect of trying to prove people wrong. And we've seen it before with his some of his comments, and he enjoys thriving under that environment where he likes to create antagonists in the media, or even he likes to just try and defy expectations. So I think a lot of this being out here is just trying to prove people wrong. He's thinking, well, you don't think I can win? Well, I'm going to try and show you that I can still try and win this championship. But as Fred touched on, it's just hard to see someone who is so physically inhibited, but also the lack of competitive play as a consequence of that. It's really difficult to make a case for him to be a winner here, apart from just his history, and he's Brooks Koepka, and he has a great record in the majors, and he has this kind of big stage performer side to him. So I think Brooks is someone who's so determined and resilient, where I think he will grind out this week, and I think he will. I'm going to back him to make the cut and play all 4 rounds and maybe show some progress. But I just find it really hard to see him beating the likes of McIlroy and Spieth and guys like that over 4 days the way he is right now. But I think Fred touched on a more important point for Brooks Koepka. It's not so much about this week in the PGA and the Wanamaker Trophy. It's very much about what's he going to be like in a year's time. And even before his most recent wins in 2019, Brooks also had physical issues as well. He's had recurring issues with various different ailments, and that's a bad sign. We look what's happened to Jason Day, for example. Jason Day won the PGA in 2015, was one of the top 3 players in the world with McIlroy and Spieth. And people were talking about this is a new big 3, and Day's going to do this and that. Day might have had the best all-round game of all of them, and physical issues, health issues, have chipped away at him to such an extent that he is now a shell of what he was, sadly, and he's someone who's not even in the US Open next month. So it's a sign of what can happen. So physically, Brooks Koepka, he's not an old man. He's just turned 30 years old of age, and it's a worrying sign he has so many recurring physical issues. And he's had a marvelous career, obviously, a career that I think too many of us probably underappreciate what he's done in the game, as he'd like to remind us all about that, I'm sure. But this is a concern for him going forward. He has to make sure, whatever it takes, he is fit and healthy, because again, he is only 30 years old. He could still have 10, even 15 years of great play and major winning form, but only if his body allows him to. And he has to give his body that chance, to give him a chance to win again.
Definitely, and the worry is real. The problem is, would he accept that time? Like we have seen with many golfers, they just keep trying and definitely get more affected. Look at what happened to Jordan Spieth. We just got this news this year about his injury that he didn't disclose. He played through it. We didn't know what was going on with him. We thought all kinds of things. Now he's finally healthy. But again, if there's a competitor, very few like Brooks Koepka. Now, Fred, Colin Morikawa is the defending champion, but he doesn't feel like it. I mean, yes, he won the WGC at the concession. He was T7 at the RBC Heritage, but after that, it's like, is he playing? Sometimes I wonder, where's Colin Morikawa? I mean, what's going on? Do you see him? He's not really trending towards a defending champion here.
No, but like we've seen with some of these other guys, a switch could flip off and he could be right there. A lot of his issues, I think, stem from having some issues with putting all of a sudden. And, a lot of that stuff comes from confidence, and you start doubting what you're doing, and then nothing's right, and then everything's going to be wrong. And then it backs up and it puts more pressure on your iron play, because you don't feel like you're going to make the putts. You're not going to get it close enough. You're going to 3-putt, and then that puts more pressure on your driving. We saw that with Spieth, for a long time. That was his problem. And I think Colin's going through that a little bit, maybe just some growing pains, different things. But you know how much I love Colin Morikawa. I love his swing. I love his all-around game. I just don't think this is probably the week for him. But I think he'll be back. I think he's going to be a solid player. But I'm not sure this is the week for him.
How about that, Kieran? I mean, Colin Morikawa definitely has the talent, and He showed it last year, but this is a different course, different form. Do you think he has a chance to defend his title?
Well, he obviously has a chance, and he's again a very capable player, a brilliant player on his day, as he's shown so much in his very young career. And I think that's a really important point to note: is he's still a very young player, and he's more so such an inexperienced player at this level. I mean, he won the PGA last year in just his second major appearance in his PGA debut. So he's still a player who's still learning about all this. He's still developing. And while he's a very talented player and he's very confident, has a great, amateur career, college career, amazing success already on the PGA Tour, surpassed, all reasonable expectations. He's still a young player, a developing player, and that's something we have to be mindful of. And we look at Tiger Woods, came and won the Masters in '97, by a record margin. Didn't win again. Didn't win another major for 2.5 years until the '99 PGA. So just because you've won one major early on doesn't mean they're all going to follow, back and forth after that. I mean, it takes a while to build up a resume for a lot of players. These things are hard to win. So, Morikawa, I think, is someone who he's having a quiet spell. He's not playing terribly. He's not doing great, but he's there or thereabouts. And obviously, that win at WGC isn't that long ago. Hasn't done much since then as such. But I think he will have a solid week. I think he will enjoy the experience of being a defending champion. And I expect him to improve as we move into the summer and we come towards Torrey Pines for the US Open. I'm really intrigued to see how he gets on in the Open Championship this year at Royal St. George's. We haven't seen him play that kind of golf course. He'll be coming over to the Scottish Open the week before that as well at the Renaissance Club. So I'm looking forward to see him deploy his skills in a different environment. So I don't see him defending the title this week, but it's fair to say I think we can rely on Morikawa being a double PGA champion in future years, because I think he has so much about him. It's so impressive. His temperament, his game, just having a slightly difficult spell, but that's going to happen to everybody. So I think he will be back, and he will be back soon. Just maybe not this week.
Form and Vegas say he won't, but like Fred said, flip of a switch, these guys can do it.
That's it, yeah.
So now let's talk about what everybody's been waiting for, our picks for sleepers and winners. Kieran, I'm going to throw you under the bus first. So go ahead. Who do you think are your dark horses, those sleepers that nobody thinks about, or maybe they think about it, but they're not that big names and could win? How about you think about the big names to win?
Well, I mentioned earlier about the varied leaderboard that we had in 2012 with the Europeans and international players on there. There were 7 non-Americans in that top 10, and Graham McDowell just outside the top 10 in 11th place. So it suggests that we could see you can't really rule out any kind of player. Mind you, in 2012, Blake Adams finished in the top 10. So I don't know what that means. So that's just when I saw that earlier, I probably can recall more golfers than the average viewer can. But even I was struggling to remember who Blake Adams was. He finished 7th in the PGA Championship 9 years ago. So, but he won't be doing that again.
A career highlight for Mr. Adams.
It was a career highlight for Mr. Adams. He wasn't heard of much since. But there we are. And actually, David Lynn finished 2nd that year, and that was a real spell from somewhere. And a year and a half later, he was out of the game entirely. He gave up, and he's now a property developer, and he's buying houses and renting them and all this stuff, and very successful. So it just shows you. But so in terms of outside players, let's look at international players that therefore I've kind of built up as being this international theme. So we'll do that. So I'm not sure they're really outside players, but Mark Leishman, he was 5th at the Masters. He partnered Cam Smith to win the Zurich. He's someone who's played well in majors in the past, and actually just this past week, he was talking on a podcast on the PGA Tour Radio about this golf course, Kiawah Island, how, as far as he's concerned, the US Open and the PGA, they don't really suit his game, but this one, more so than most. So he's feeling optimistic, and he's someone who you'd like to see win a major. He's a very likable character. He's come so close before. I remember watching him, finish 2nd at the Open Championship at St Andrews in the playoff. And of course, he had that run at the Masters in 2013 where you watched him in the background punching the air as Adam Scott holed the putt, which just shows the kind of guy that he is. So yeah, Mark Leishman could do well this week. Likewise, Louis Oosthuizen, who was top 10 at the Valspar Championship recently. Someone who I just think he can't rule him out of any major. Obviously played well at the US Open last year, still showing he's capable of contending in these big events. And Louis is one of the very few players who have actually finished second at every major, all 4 majors in golf, which is a very rare accolade to have. You got to obviously win them all, but he's finished second in 4, and of course won one at St Andrews over a decade ago. Always capable. I think he's someone who can, on his day, he's as good as anybody. So he could be an outside pick. Also, Tommy Fleetwood. It's time we saw him play well again because he's so good, so capable, and he's played well in tough golf courses before. And indeed, this kind of style of golf too should suit him as well. So I think Tommy could have a better week this week and show some of his best form again, particularly off the tee, where he's such a good tee to green player. If he can do that, then I think he'll have a solid week. And who knows, maybe if he gets a bit of fire on the greens, he could actually contend. In terms of real outside players, I like Victor Perez, who excelled at the match play, of course. And he played well at the Players' Championship, as we know, a Pete Dye golf course as well. Obviously a different style, but still has those little tricks and so on in it, and certain kind of intimidating visual lines as well. So I think Victor Perez is someone who's fearless, seems to really embrace the big stage, and he might play well this week. And I also look at Shane Lowry, who, since he won the Open Championship at Royal Portrush, we have been waiting for him to come to back that up. Hasn't quite happened, but he's someone who's very capable, has shown flashes of good form, just hasn't quite put the 4 good rounds together. If he can do that, he certainly has the capability of playing well on this style of golf course, particularly if the wind picks up one or two of the days. He's someone who's very good in the wind, and I think he could play well this week. So those are my international outsiders, Carlos. So I'm picking the non-American guys to win this event. The PGA through the years has been quite, often dominated by American players, but I'm going to say that one of the non-Americans will surprise this week.
All right, that those are some surprising, but some very good picks. So how about you, Fred? What you think about that, and who are your picks for sleepers and favorites to win?
Well, I don't know if you can call Victor Hovland a dark horse or a sleeper, but he keeps knocking on the door. He's playing really well this year, so it would not be a surprise to see him win something like this. I'm going to dig back a little bit. The kid that I'd like to watch too is Will Zalatoris, and he went through a real hot spot. I'm sure he took on a lot of off-course responsibilities. That's probably why we haven't seen much of him in the last couple of weeks, but maybe he got a little bit of rest in and he'll be ready to go. And I like, Kieran was talking about Louis Oosthuizen. I like Charles Schwartzel. Charles has been picking it up the last few weeks and playing a little bit better. And he talked about Leishman. Well, I like his buddy Cam Smith. Cam has a tremendous short game, and that could play very well here at Kiawah Island. So I like that a lot. Now, here's a real dark horse for you guys. You will not believe this one, right? Max Homa. You know why? You know who's on the bag this week?
Bones
has got the bag. So he might just lead young Mr. Homa right around there to a good finish. But for the win, guys, I got to go with and we haven't talked. I don't know if you talked about JT when I was off air for a little bit, but I really like Justin Thomas this week. I like Spieth. I like Rory. And I didn't get to talk about Rahm, but I think Rahm has a real good chance too. So, those are my guys. I'd love to see Spieth win it, but Rory would be great as well, or JT, one of those three. And I think these other guys I mentioned could finish high as well.
All right.
Well, Carlos, I didn't mention my winner for the PGA Championship. I mentioned my contenders, but I will mention my winner now.
So who's the winner? Who's the winner?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? It's Jordan Spieth. The Grand Slam, baby. Grand Slam. That's it. It's happening.
He's going with one of the favorites. I can't believe it. Oh, my God. He's becoming, I don't know. Who is this guy?
I'm turning into you. That's what I'm doing. I'm picking half the field, then picking one of the favorites. But no. I'm going to say Jordan Spieth. As I say, I root for the story. I think Rory has a great chance. Leishman, even Patrick Reed, I think has a good chance as well around here. Could be a slightly under the radar player.
Yep.
To be fair, I'm not sure many people would want to see Patrick Reed necessarily win the PGA Championship, but in terms of stories people would want to see, I think Jordan Spieth. I think it would be a magical victory, and it would complete just a
Be
wonderful
really good
career
for
turnaround.
golf. Be really
Great
good
for
for
golf.
golf.
Great for golf.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Spieth for the win, Carlos.
Well, I'm just gonna go out on a limb. That was gonna be my pick for the win, but I don't think it's a surprise, right, for anybody that I'm picking him for win. I mean, every week I'm going to be picking him up for a win, but definitely the story, like you're saying, the career Grand Slam. Only 5 players have done that before, so I'm really pulling for him. I think, like you're saying, it's going to be great for golf, and it's what we need right now. That kind of attraction. I mean, when he's on and he's winning, there's a lot of eyes. Maybe since Tiger Woods, he could be the closest one to become that attraction that we need. But now let me tell you my sleepers, and I like to say sleepers, right? And I don't know if you can call Tommy Fleetwood and Tyrrell Hatton sleepers, but if there's 2 people that can play this type of course, links type of course, is Tyrrell Hatton and Tommy Fleetwood. I think they could do really, really well here. Don't know about the length of the course, but again, there's a lot of ball striking that needs to be done, and those are 2 players that can win it here. Cory Connors, I still think. I mean, he managed to be there at T8 and the Masters. He's like a top 10 machine, and he just needs just a little bit more of a just upgrade to make it. And I'm going to be watching him. That Canadian can do it. Will Zalatoris, I'm not going to leave my guy now out. I mean, he's playing well. He's from here, from where I live, Plano, Texas. So I'm pulling for Will Z. He's gonna be close to doing it. And my other sleeper is Daniel Berger. I mean, he's playing really, really well. And like I mentioned, only him and Jordan Spieth have more than 2 strokes gained average per round so far this year. So those are my 5 sleepers. Now for the big names, I couldn't make a list. I tried. I have it here. I mean, if I show you in the paper, I have some. I was even, trying to see which one I was erasing coming back, but I have to talk about Justin Rose, 40 years old, but he's playing really, really well. All that he's been lacking, just like John Ram, which is another player of the big names that I'm going to mention. He's just not closing the door, but he's been there knocking at it, trying to get in, but not closing it. And just the same thing with John Ram. And they could be 2 top players that are going to be there at the end. Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. Oh my God, those 2 are 2 big time players that are also close to winning the major. So those are ones. And my last 2, of course, I already said Jordan Spieth, but the other one, I'm not gonna leave him out this time. I left him out at the Masters. He beat me there, but everybody knows that I've always picked Hideki Matsuyama, and I'm not making
drum roll for
that
Hideki.
mistake again. So Hideki's my
I
second.
can't believe we went the whole show without talking about Hideki.
Yeah, everybody's forgetting about the Masters winner, and of course we've been going through first-time winners 3 out of the last 4 times. But hey, he can be the first one to double down and make it 2 majors in 1 year. So, Kieran Clarke, your final thoughts before we close.
Well, I'm just trying to work out who you didn't actually mention there, Carlos, at the field, because that was apart from the club pros and John Daly, I think you had them all covered there at one point. So everybody has a chance to win this week, apart from 21 players. So that's quite impressive. But no, I think we mentioned it at the start of the show, Carlos, where I think this golf course will be a star this week. Great venue, spectacular, a really interesting golf course that rewards different kinds of players. It's very difficult to call, and I think that will make for a great championship. Obviously, there's some great storylines coming in this week. Rory, Spieth, obviously they've been the standouts, but of course there's so many guys behind them. Again, can the big name players who are maybe not quite at their game, the likes of DJ and Bryson and so on, can they show their form again? Very capable of doing so. And that really makes it a fascinating championship. And the PGA often gets a little bit under the radar at times. But I think this week, if they can get the right winner at this venue, then I think it will feel like a really, really big time championship. And so I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be potentially one for the ages. And we'll wait and see. But as I say, I think there's a chance for history this week, and that history will be made by a certain young Texans. So Jordan Spieth, it's your time, my friend. This is it. Get it done. I tipped Dustin Thomas to win the Masters, and that failed miserably. So they're going for Jordan Spieth. So come on, don't let me down this time.
Yes, another Texan is Will Salvatore, so we'll see. But anyway, Fred, how about you? What some closing thoughts before we
The odds makers like Rory, Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Jordan Spieth, Bryson, Dustin Johnson, Xander, Victor Hovland, Morikawa, Berger, and Hideki are the top 10 on the odds for this week. We covered pretty much all those. We didn't talk much about Daniel Berger, but he's got a real shot at this thing as well. So I think it's going to be a very good week. If nothing else than just watching the golf course and how they play some of those holes should be a lot of fun. It's a real challenge, and really looking forward to it.
No matter what happens, because it's a major, there will be history made. That's just the way it is. So Kieran Clarke, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
One more time. Wonderful job as usual. For you guys, follow the show. Subscribe to the channel for more golf information and news on the latest on it. Subscribe to the channel and also follow the show on Twitter. Our ID is at Back9Report with the number 9 in the middle. Thank you for joining us.